Hello, my name is Debbie, owlandgatorstitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 40. Today is Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. This is a video mainly about cross-stitch, sometimes about what I'm reading and watching, but I think I'm going to skip the reading and watching this week because I have a lot of cross-stitch news to share, and I think the video will go on forever. I know some of you love long videos, but others of you are like, okay, enough, let's move on to the next one. But anyhow, if you are a new viewer, welcome. I hope that you like what you see. And if you do, click on that subscribe button. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate all the interaction with you and the love that you give to my cross stitch. That's a big reason on why I do this, is just be able to share the love of my craft with other people. However, in the past couple of weeks, I think it's been about 2.5 weeks since my last video, I've had a lot of chance to share my projects in person with people. So my local needlework store had closed down the brick and mortar for the summer. The owner had some health issues, and so she was only going to have an online presence, but she reopened towards the end of August. And so I was really happy. So I went to a little stitch-in that she had at the shop on one day. And there was just a couple of us who were there. I think she sort of did a soft sort of launch of reopening because she wasn't supposed to reopen until September. But it was nice just to sit with a couple of fellow stitchers and sit and chat. And we were there, probably there for about 4 hours. And then one of those people is a friend of mine. So we went out to lunch a few days later, and we brought our stitching, and we just sat there after we had lunch at Panera, and we just sat and stitched. And I always wonder, I'm like, is Panera going to be bothered that we're sort of sitting at a table? And then when I looked around, of course, like half the people are just sitting there with their laptops open. So stitching laptops were all just taking up tables, but it wasn't like there were people who were looking for tables. So anyhow, it was a lot of fun to be able to do some of those stitching events locally. And then I also went to a retreat last weekend at the Quilter Station, which is right outside of Kansas City, Missouri. So I'm going to leave a lot of the details about that retreat to the end because I know there were a lot of Flosstubers there, and I'm sure there are some people who could probably give it a lot more justice, or you've already seen those videos and you don't need a repeat of everything. So I will leave talking about that retreat at the end. But I'm just really happy that I'm able to come home and film. The day after I got home, I went and got my shingles shot. And for those of you who have not had your shingles vaccination, it's a 2-shot series. And I was warned the second one is difficult, and it was. Yesterday, I was out for the count. It just feels like you're really feverish and tired and stuff like that. I knew it was going to happen, so I knew what it was. I wasn't terribly worried about it, but it doesn't make you feel any better. Just lists the worry. So last night I got a good night's sleep, and so I'm ready to film because I didn't want to push this off till next week because I have so much to show you, and I just, my projects are piling up. So with that, why don't I go ahead and start showing you what I've been stitching on. So, but right before you do that, for those of you who may be new, I participate in a lot of the games on Facebook. And so sometimes you'll hear me referencing, I stitched this for a prompt. If you ever have any questions about that, just let me know. And I'm happy to give a little bit more detail about those games. But I know many of you participate or have seen me talk about them in previous videos, so I don't necessarily introduce them every single video. So with that, as many of you know, I participate in No New Starts, but I'm doing the Work Your Whips, which means that if you finish a project, you can start a new one that's a similar size, or there are various ways to earn new starts. So I have 2 sort of freebie starts that I can start whatever I want, and I have a small that I can, that I also can do. I haven't started the small yet. I'm still trying to decide what that's going to be, but I will figure it out probably before my next video and have that to show you. But the first 2 projects I'm going to show you are new starts. And of course it's me, so there is nothing small. But the first one, I mentioned to you before that Stitching Jules, Flosstuber, has been filming for many years, started a design company a couple of years ago. And so she reached out and said, hey, I would love to have some smaller Flosstube channels work on my projects. And so she generously gifted a number of us patterns that we wanted to, just a pattern for each of us that we wanted to stitch. And so there were so many, I sort of said, here's a few that I'm interested in. You just pick one. So the one she picked, and I think I showed this last time, was 3 dancers. And I just love all of the color in this. I mean, in the artistic presentation, but I think what really attracted me is just all those bright colors. while I will stitch things with blacks and browns and grays, it's not my favorite thing to stitch. I love color. And so this is the one I picked. It is full coverage, but it's not a huge full coverage. I think it's about 26,000 stitches, which is probably one of the smallest full coverages that I'm working on that's not a mill hill kit. So I have one good stitching session on this, and I think this is about 463 stitches. So not a lot to see right now. I'm started in the upper left-hand corner. So it's just, I think that's 741. So I just put in a lot of those stitches there. So I will be working this cross country to a certain extent, basically. So I just picked up, there was a lot of this color, but then I won't continue with this across the space. I will pick up now, starting to go for some of those rogue stitches and pick those up and start stitching it in. So I get that nice blended background. You know, part of me says it will be a while before I start to get to the figures, but I keep forgetting, you know, so pull this back so you can see this. So you don't need to see me. So it will be, you know, a while before, I feel like it will be a while before I get to those figures, but I also have to tell myself that this is a small pattern. And so it won't take nearly as long as I think to get there. But so started up here, and you know, so I will go across, and then I probably, knowing me, will then go down. I like to, even though I've measured the fabric 15 times and I have no reason to believe it won't fit, I always just like to hit 3 of my 4 corners. And then it also leaves a lot of the colors and the main figures towards the end, which makes it fun to sort of see the design truly come to life. So that is 3 Dancers by Stitching Jules Designs. And even though this isn't a lot, it's still 1.5%, something along that way. And we're going to contrast that to the next new start I have, which is, this is the Grand Library Supersize Max Coverage. And this is charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, artwork by Aimee Stewart. I know a lot of people are working on this. And I chose this one to start in the lower left-hand corner because that gets me closer to the motifs that I'm really interested in working on. I have accepted that I may never finish this project. I'm okay with that. But it gives me a chance, you know, if there are things that I find more interesting, it gives me a chance to work on them, you know, to get to them, have a more likely chance of getting to work on them. So here is where I am. So this is over 1,000 stitches, and basically this is sort of just like the bottom of a bookshelf, and then this is going up. This is a book here, so this is sort of outlining that book, and then this is, I think, it's not a spine. I think it's a space between 2 books. So it's like the darkness between the 2 books. That is over 1,000 stitches. And, you know, contrast, I did fewer than 500 stitches and was at about 1.5% on that one from Stitching Jules. This one, I think it was a little over 0.1% done. So this one, I think, is 715,000 stitches if I did the math right. So it's just going to be a long time working on this. But again, this stitching for me is really about the journey and less about the final product. So that's where I am with the Grand Library. As I mentioned in my last video, I'm also trying to make a little bit more effort to pull out projects that I have not touched this year. I did at the end of 2021 have a lot of starts where I put 200 stitches and things just so I could do no new starts, you know, and have those projects waiting. And some of them I have worked on. I've even finished one of them, but a lot of them have just sort of sat there. And so I really wanted to make an effort to work on those a little bit more. So one of those is Beautiful Things by Lindy Stitches. Again, a lot of people are stitching this, and it says, oh my darling, it's true. Beautiful things have dents and scratches too. And I just really love that sentiment. Here is where I am. So I think this is the first time I'm showing this because I think all those ones that I just did quick starts on, I started them after my parade in 2021, and then I didn't pull them out again to work on. So here's where I am. So basically did some work on that border. It's a lot of fun to work on that border. And then basically this is the Y and my, and then just a little bit here. So just a lot of fun to pull it out and work on it. You know, and I'm hoping that it won't be another 8 months before I work on it again. But nonetheless, I'm happy I had a chance to work on it. That is some bright sunlight. There is a vehicle outside. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. A vehicle pulled up across the street, and the way it was, the light was shining off the window, and it was coming right onto my face. So apologies about that. I've shut the shutters, so hopefully it won't make it too dark in here, but at least now I won't be blinded and have a bright light on my face. So anyhow, let me go back and continue to show you what I was working on. So another piece, which I actually had started in 2020, but I had not yet pulled it out in 2021. This is Bag Ladies. It's a Sunset kit. So I don't know if Sunset publishes things or makes kits anymore, but they're a division of Dimensions. So I always think of this as a Dimensions kit. I don't know why this particular... Well, I don't know why they had this division. I don't know if it's different than the regular Dimensions kits or not, but anyhow, didn't do a huge amount. Oh, and by the way, I'm not showing before and afters. I'm having a lot of frustration with the editing process, and showing the before and afters really slows things down and pictures get lost. And so I've just decided not to show them. I will do a whip parade at some point, and I will do before and afters then, but I'm not going to do them right now in my regular videos because I'm not really able to pull. Sometimes I can find them, sometimes I can't pull up the pictures that I did before. So anyhow, this is Bag Ladies. So I had done this whole bag previously, and basically all I did was the shadowing down here. This is another bag here, and then I started to work on the brown bag there. So not very exciting looking. You can start to see like the outline of a kitty here. And this is sort of the round of another kitty whose head is poking out of that bag there. So not a lot to progress to show, but glad I had a chance to pull this out and take a look at it. And it also, of course, this is what I took with me when I went to Panera to stitch with my friend. And I'm like, okay, pulling the colors. I didn't want to take everything, so I just pulled the colors I needed. And then I realized one of the colors I wanted to work on, I didn't actually have the floss listed for it. So this is because this was a kit. Someone gave me the pattern, and then this was actually the kit fabric, but she had used the floss, so I had to convert the floss to DMC. Not very hard. You can just go online, and there are tons of like Dimensions flosses conversions to DMC. So that wasn't hard. But I realized I hadn't converted one of them, so I was like scrambling, going, "Oh, what's this color?" As I'm like running late, whatever. It all worked out. It was one of these sort of brownish colors over here. So that is Bag Ladies. Next one, I just pulled this out yesterday. This is another one that I started at the end of 2021, although I think I even kitted it up in 2020, and I just never got around to starting it. So this is I Forget the Rest. And part of the reason why I pulled this out yesterday is I am participating in Semi-Sane Stitchers Bingo, and the letter yesterday was I. And so I thought, great chance to pull this one out. And so the sentiment is, we were together, I forget the rest. And I really love that idea. When I first saw this pattern, I was like, I'm not really sure. And then the more I thought about it, I thought that is really sort of a lovely sentiment. I mean, if you think about, there's that old adage, like in customer service or whatever, people might not remember what you said or did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And even beyond customer service and relationships and all of that. And that's sort of what this reminds me of, but the rest of it, that it, over the course of a long relationship, there's highs, there's lows, there's everything. But at the end of it, if you value the time that you have with the person and it just leaves you that warm feeling in your heart, that's what this makes me think of. And so I really, the more I thought about it, I'm like, I definitely have to stitch that. So I had done a little bit on the branches before, and that was sort of it. And so I'll show you what I stitched, but look at the color of this wing here, and I'll show you a little bit frustrated. So here's where I am now. So again, I had done a lot of this, but I yesterday put in some leaves. I put in, I think I may have had a letter for together, but finished together. And then, Yes, I know my W is not finished, so it's viver to the other. I just, where my Q-snap was, and I didn't want to have to pull out more gunmetal, which is that color, because I wouldn't have been able to use it up elsewhere. So, but I was a little bit frustrated because I'm using the called for, and this color is caramel corn. And as you can see, doesn't really match. That this is much more of a brown color here. And I thought about, and I realized it probably over 100 stitches in, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to leave it. I probably have to go and buy another skein of caramel corn because it's used a lot in both of the owls. And so I will finish this skein for the owl that's in front, and then I'll start using the other one again. They're not perfectly matched in this picture, so they don't need to be perfectly matched in my stitching. But that was sort of, again, that's on me. I know dye lots and all of that, but I didn't expect it to be that much paler than the picture. But, what I was also a little concerned was it almost looks like this color here. But then this is, I think, a parchment here. And my parchment is very pale. So it will all work out. This owl just might be really white, so that's okay. But again, I really enjoyed stitching on this, and I love Lindy stitches. So as you see, I just showed you 2 patterns that I'm stitching on her just in this video. I also pulled out my Mirabilia, one of my Mirabilias that I'm working on. So this is Portrait of Veronica by Mirabilia, and here is where I am. So I had basically, I'm trying to, I think mentioned last time, I'm trying to get all of the stitches around her arm done so then I can backstitch the arm and make it look a little bit better because that hand is freaking me out the way the fingers are there. So I picked up some black and did a lot of the black in here and up here. And then I started stitching the colors in the bodice, which also come down here. So really enjoying this and glad to see it come to life. You can't see it, but her head is actually done in here. So, this is the really slim part of her body, so it's going really quickly, but the dress sort of poofs out in the back. So, I feel like I'm making great progress on it. And then, of course, I'm not because I'm going to then all of a sudden and there's going to be this big dress that I have to work on, which is fine. The main color of the dress is 3808, DMC 3808. It's one of my favorite colors, probably why I was attracted to stitching this in the first place. So glad I had a chance to pull this out and work on it a little bit more. The next one I want to show you is Evening Romance by Artecy, charted by Artecy, artwork by Mark Keeley. I don't know how to say his Keeley. I don't know how to say his name. And I showed this in my last video, but I did manage to get that page finished, and it's out of the Q-snap. So let me show you where I am. So basically, I was working on that page there. I love the way you can see just the light pouring out of the lamppost. So I finished sort of this page in here. I was working on just through rogue stitches, which were driving me crazy. And then I started, I started pulling colors for this. So I'm not done with this tree here, but did quite a bit on those branches there to work on that tree. So this one will come back out in October, but after I finished that page, I decided this one is, again, I keep saying it, it's a paper pattern, and it's nothing but confetti stitches, and so it just takes a long time, and so I work on it, and then I need a break from it. That is Evening Romance. And the next one I'm working on is a magazine piece, and this is Reading is Magical. I think the designer is Doreen Jones for this, but yes, it's Doreen Jones. So you can see there, it's just a nice scene of an open book and some fantastical, moon, the sun, and the cat. I have changed. I had a fabric I really wanted to use for this, but those the reds would not work on it. So I changed the colors, and here is where I am now. So I have finished the main stitching for the actual Reading is Magical words. There is another color that is supposed to sort of hide, make this pop a little bit more. The letters pop a little bit more. And I decided the color initially I was going to convert that to, it was too similar to the color I initially had. I think like this is 957, I think, and it was 962 or reverse, and they were just too similar. And so I want to have another one in the pink family, but I don't know what that's going to be yet. I have to sort of take some time and go take a look. And then I did a little bit this sort of, it's not really a rainbow, but these sort of stripe colors. I worked on those a little bit, put a couple more of the stripes in there. So very happy I had a chance to pull this out and work on it a little bit more. And then one of the favorite pieces of many of my viewers is Old World Map by Artecy. And this is one of my whip go pieces. And so I need to get 1,000 stitches on it. And here's where I am. So basically I focused this time working down here. I think this is the North Pole up here. I think this is Asia. I'm not 100% sure. I need to look at that map a little bit more carefully. But basically I was pulling colors, and so a lot of different shades of yellow and sort of some of the colors that go in that sort of help differentiate that a little bit more. So that's primarily where I worked. I did do, a little bit over here and coming up into the ring, especially if they were the same color as here. So initially I was color completing across the whole page, but then that was dry. It was sort of, I would do a little bit here, especially with the latitude and longitude lines. The stitches are all over the place, and I decided I wanted to see a little bit more progress on this. I'm also trying to avoid the issue I have with Evening Romance where I have nothing but rogue stitches at the end. I do have this in Pattern Keeper, so they're much easier to find and do, but I want to see a little bit more completion, which is why I'm trying to focus on a particular area. It also makes it easier for the admins for a lot of my games if they actually are looking carefully to see where I've stitched. If I've done 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, and I have a picture, that's all the way back here. This is an 11 by 17 key snap, so it's a large stitching area. I can see that might drive them a little bit crazy. But I really enjoy working on this, and I think your enthusiasm for this piece has really made me enthusiastic to stitch on it again. So I had a lot of fun working on this, and it will continue to come out this month. My other whip go piece, this is Mother of Dragons by Pain Free Crafts, artwork by Alexandra Bach. There is a version of this that was charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. It's the same painting, but this is not a cropped view, but I think I don't know what the original artwork looks like, but it looks like a different angle on this, or like this might be the same, but this is pulled out and you see more, like you can see more down into her bodice or whatever. So, but I'm happy to be working on this one. I will say, so I am sort of working up in here, and I am going to get to the point. Yeah, I'm sort of like right here, working on this page. As soon as I finish this page, I'm going to go down here and start working on the dragon, because I'm getting a little bit frustrated that I'm doing nothing but background and I'm really not seeing anything come to life. Now that is a really dark background and there's not a lot of detail. I mean, the only thing is a little bit of the detailing here on the wall. There's not a lot to see. And then you get to I have done some of the wing of the dragon, but that's just really dark. There's not much detail there. So I do want to start to see some of the detail in this pattern come out. So here is where I am now. Why do I feel like I have, yep, there we go. So basically I've just been pulling colors on the wall and coming down. So there's really, again, this is one of the wings of the dragon. There's just not a lot to see on this right now. And so, and because this is a paper pattern, it just takes, it can be slow going. This has been a lot of block stitching in here, so it hasn't been too bad. But I'm definitely looking forward to getting this page finished and then going and actually seeing some of the detail of the pattern come to life. And then my last two pieces, which I show almost every video. One is High Intensity. This is the cropped version, charted by Artecy, artwork by Agnew. And here's where it is. So basically I put in, I think, almost 2,000 stitches since the last time. And basically, so I've done just, you can start to see the moss on the log really starting to come out. This is all background here. And then I'm starting to work as, this is all, most of this is 310. So hit some of his spots as well in his foreleg, and then can't really see it very well, but there's some 3865 in there. That's one of his paws. So love the way the detail is coming out on the jaguar himself. Less thrilled about the background, about how it's coming out. Some of that could be because I chose to do this on 14 count because I just didn't use what was in my stash. This is not a huge full coverage. It's about 42,000 stitches. So as full coverages go, not that big, at least the ones that I do. But nonetheless, it's, even on 14 count, it feels, as a result, the actual final product will be quite large. But my goal is to finish it this year. Once I really sort of hit that mark of like, okay, you have to do 3,000 stitches a month if you want to achieve that. Once I sort of had that realization, I'm like, just do it. So for the past few months, I have been hitting that goal. I'm about 2,000 for this month, and we're not even halfway through. So I think hitting that goal is completing this is very realistic. And then the last piece I want to show you is Cats in the Toy Box by Heaven and Earth Designs. So not a lot of progress on this. This is usually my evening stitch, but because I was traveling and a few other things came up that I just was working on something, wanted to continue working in the evenings, didn't get picked up as much. So I've only put in about 1,300 stitches since last time. But I really have been concentrating on pulling colors. So I got the clown's sleeve fully completed, and I'm starting to pull the colors in his hand. And then I am sort of color completing in this area. So like a lot of the colors in his hand also show up in the two bears. You can start to see the little bear really starting to come out now. I'm still looking forward to that. My goal last time I said was to be able to get basically everything done down to here. So then I could pull this out and move the Q-snap and show you. I'm not close to that. So that's my goal for next time, is to try and get a little bit more done. Again, really to about here. You can sort of see where I've stopped. Because then that line also is where, if I move the Q-snap, I can get all the way to the bottom of the pattern. That'll be really exciting if I can go down and hit that one. And this is, I think I'm at about 63%. So this is not something that will get finished this year, but my goal on this one is to finish it in 2023. And I don't have certain stitch targets I have to hit every month right now on this. I'm just trying to, I love stitching on it. I have so much fun with it. So, it's some evenings it's disappointing when I do want to work on something else, but I'm like, but I'm not going to stitch on the cats. But I'm okay with that. I like it all, and this will eventually get completed, hopefully in 2023. So that is all the stitching I have to share with you. My plans basically are, I have to finish my Whip Go pieces. So a little bit more on Mother Dragons, and I'm about halfway done with Old World Map for my Whip Go piece. I probably on Old World Map will do more than my target of 1,000 for Whip Go, simply because it's easy stitching, and once I start working on it, it's very rhythmic, and I can keep going with it. Also, Letters of the Month, those two pieces, I did a little bit of stitching on it, but I'll show it to you next time. I had a lot of projects to show you this time, to show you a little bit more progress, because they only each got a couple hundred stitches. So those are my plans. And again, the rest of it is up in the air because I am planning both Go Stitch and Semi Sane, which every day they pull a letter. And if you have and it has to be the title of the project starting with that letter. So there, so yesterday was I forget the rest. But it's not like, I, so do I have any words that begin with I? No, it's I forget the rest. So no F, no T, no R, it's only I. And then also I'm doing AB Singo in the Magazine Monthly Cross Stitch Challenge. So those pieces I tried to plug in like my Whip Go pieces and others. So that also sometimes dictates what I am working on a little bit. But other than that, I'm free to stitch on what I want. Well, I'm always free to stitch on what I want. So we'll see where everything takes us. So that is it for my plans. I'm going to start off with my haul, and then I'll much of it which I got from the retreat, but not the actual things that we were given at the retreat that were included as part of what we paid for the retreat. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the haul. I know not all of you are here for that, so if you're not, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. But if you are here for the haul, let me go ahead and show you what I've gotten, because I actually have quite a bit. So the first thing I want to show you, so this is I am doing the Bird Crush Club from Lindy Stitches, and none of these birds have been started yet. They're going to be 12. So anyhow, this is the bird. It's the American goldfinch. So that's the actual bird, and here is the picture of the stitched product. And as part, there's a lot of things that come in this package, but one of the reasons why I wanted to do the club as opposed to just waiting until I get the patterns later was she includes a skein of floss. So this is she's using Threadworks for all of it, and I think this is a lovely, lovely yellow. Put it against that. It's a lovely yellow for this goldfinch. So I'm really looking forward to using this and working on this bird. And she always has one floss that's in there, and then the rest of it is just DMC. And then when I went to my LNS, I am collecting the Year in the Woods patterns. Have not started any of them, and I intend to do 3 per season, so 3 patterns on one piece of fabric. And picture this plus Velt was one of the colors that she had used, which is very hard to find. And when I went to my local needlework store, we sort of talked about it. She actually had Velt in 40 count, but I tend to do 32 count. So we looked, and this is a piece of fiber on a whim. Let me see if I can actually get the color name. Here, I pulled it out of the bag. I try not to crinkle as much as possible, and unfortunately the name is not here, but I do know it is fiber on a whim. So it's not a perfect match for Velt, but it's got sort of those greens and the gold that you have in Velt. So, and so this will be, let me see if this is the name. Yep, this is the name. It is Parchment. Okay. I wouldn't have thought that was Parchment. But the patterns, and these are patterns I already had, but it's these 3 patterns. So the jackrabbit, raccoon, and ferret. So those 3 will go on that fabric. I think that somehow I have 6 patterns in here, so I'm going to have to figure out exactly which ones go where. But anyhow, so that was something I got. I also picked up from there, this is Charlotte from Mirabilia. So I do plan to try to get into the retreat, the Mirabilia retreat that's taking place in 2023. It's taking place in Charlotte. So this is sort of the unofficial mascot, so to speak. This was designed well before the retreat was, selected, but because it's in Charlotte, we thought, or the organizers thought this would be a great one. If you sign up in the first 24 hours, it's going to be by lottery. So I have no idea, they wanted to make it fair so that, if you're at work or wherever you are, if it's like sleeping time for you, that you don't, that sort of, if you are willing to, within a 24-hour period, to take the time to go sign up, then it's a lottery. So that sounds like a very fair way to do it, rather than first come, first serve. So that's why I sort of am questioning. I will sign up, but whether or not I am lucky enough to be selected remains to be seen. So if you want more details on that, there's a Facebook group, but then it's also Maggie from Kitschy Whips and Fiber Arts Aimee are the ones who are organizing it. So if you go to their Flosstube channels, you can get a lot more information. I also, a friend of mine went to a retreat that I did not go to, and there was a freebie table. And she knows I do a lot of full coverages, so she picked these up for me. I don't know if I'm going to do them or not. Again, they are paper charts only, and so I'm trying really hard for my full coverage to move them to Pattern Keeper, but if I ever figure out how to scan them and create my own PDF, that might be an option. So these are 4 charts. So this is Secret Garden, artwork by Sharon Freder. So that's 1. This is The Journey Begins, artwork by Scott Gustafson. This is Angel, artwork by Ruth Sanderson. And the last one is it's a Story Keep artwork by Sarah Butcher, Romeo and Juliet. So again, don't know if I will do those. A couple of them I really do like, but again, I want to finish the patterns I have not in Pattern Keeper, because having too many of those paper ones, they just sort of sit and linger. So I can, but again, I know they also are making updates to Pattern Keeper all the time, so it may be at some point they will be able to get the functionality to the point where you can actually find symbols on charts that you've scanned yourself. Okay. This should not be in there. Okay. So then I managed to mix up how I wanted to show everything. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry, getting really up close and personal on my face. So at the retreat, the Quilter Station retreat. So the guest designers at that retreat were Chessie and me, hello from Liz Matthews, Kathy Barrick, Teresa Kogut, and Alma from Blackbird Designs. So wonderful, wonderful designers. And for each of the designers that came, you got a kit that came as part of what you had paid for. But they also, Blackbird Designs did not do this, but all the other designers had things that you could buy from them. So of course I took advantage and bought things from them. So I got this one, brown fish owl. And again, they had models for all these things. And of course, they just looked incredible. So that's, what inspires you to buy them. So I have that one. I got the one that I love from Teresa Kogut. She also had the big sampler from her Halloween book that looked amazing. But I decided not to get that. A lot of people were getting that. I chose not to get it. I don't stitch a lot of Halloween. I don't have anything against it, but it's not, I don't really decorate my house that way. And so it's just, anyhow, but it looked amazing. And then another one is from Hello by Liz Matthews, Tokens of Fall. And then Repeat the Sounding Joy from Kathy Barrick, the Black Swan. Okay, yes. And then I did go to Quilter Station, as you might guess from the name of the store. It really is focusing on quilting. She does have a cross-stitch section, but it's not huge. So not a huge selection of patterns, but I did find this one that I've seen other people stitching this, Dutch Rose Garden, from Samplers Not Forgotten. So really pretty. And then I can't help myself. I have to get the pretty color fabrics. So I got, this is from something called Atomic Ranch. I have not heard of them. So this is called Caribbean Sea. These are all 32 count, even weave, or maybe linen, but fat quarters. And then this is Picture This Plus Mirage. And Picture This Plus Haunted. For those of you who are murky lovers, she did have some murky and 40 count. And then at the retreat itself, they had it set up. So the way that she had it up, let me just sort of let me show you one more thing. So one of my table mates who lives in the area, and she had gone to previous retreats hosted by the Quilter Station. And Janine McGowan from the Blue Flower had been one of those. And I made an offhand comment that Janine McGowan is one of my favorite designers. And whatever we chatted about, the next day I show up and she basically said, I don't think I'm going to stitch this. So she gave me basically the whole box that they got from the Blue Flowers. So I'm not going to show you everything, but this is the pattern that is in there, which is the spring quail, and I think that's a dogwood flower. And she did this. I think the dogwood, I don't know if it's the official flower of Missouri, but this pattern I think she did because the retreat is in Missouri. She wanted to commemorate that. So very excited and very, very kind of my table mates. So I'm going to talk about the retreat itself. So this is a retreat where it was hosted. You had to pay. It was, in my opinion, quite expensive just for the registration fee, but I paid it because it was 5 designers there, and so you're paying for their time and not just showing up, but that they've designed and they make kits and they've sourced a lot of things for you, and they put a lot of effort into making sure that everyone got everything that they needed and everything, and then there was a surprise 6th person who came as well that we were not aware of ahead of time. But it was about 150 attendees, and they had it set up, and it was done in she set it up classroom style. So we were in a ballroom at a hotel. And I have to say, she said it well because you guys talk too much if I put you at round tables. Yeah, that probably is true. But I will say, given that the designers themselves, they were meant to be classes, but literally it was the designers maybe talked for 10, 15 minutes. And then went around, you could work on the project they gave you, or you could work on something else. You could ask questions. I had 2 really lovely table mates, both local to the area. They were sisters, Cindy and Marcia. They were lovely. But I think by doing it the classroom style, you didn't have a chance to interact with as much or as easily with other people in the room. There were a ton of Flosstubers there. I went and introduced myself to a couple of people who I watch. There are a lot more people I watch that I did not go introduce myself to. But the 2 in particular that I went and introduced myself to, one was Carol, the Saltbox Stitcher, partially because, all the Flosstubers who are there are great stitchers, but Carol also, because she's another Floridian and she lives less than 2 hours away from me. So I thought, great, I should go introduce myself to her and just chat for a little bit. And then also I went and introduced myself to Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch, so Liz, and she was lovely. So it was great to, chat with them, just, chatted with a lot of other people as well. We all were just ogling over our projects and just, and then also some people just had really great accoutrement. People were handing out candy and tea and needle minders and all of that, just really generous atmosphere. But again, when you're talking, when you're sitting at your table and the table in front of me, like especially at lunchtime, because we had boxed lunches, they would turn around and chat with us. So, I did get to talk to more people, but I would have preferred to have the table set up, especially given that the designers didn't talk that long. So the first day started on a Thursday afternoon, and the first designer was Linda from Chessie and me. And so I actually don't have any of her patterns, and all of it was, so this is the pattern that she gave us. So, and it came, this one came with all of the floss and the linen. And then while I was there, like you can see the project, like there's here, like a little scissor fob. I probably won't do the scissor fob, but I did want to learn how to make cording. And so someone there had the little cording machine. If anyone knows where to get a cording machine, I looked at Kreinik, and then, which was about $30 for what it, basically it looks like a little fishing thing. And then Amazon had it for $50, which seemed a bit expensive to me. But I did make some cording with that machine and got some practice at it. So not entirely sure how I will use this, but nonetheless, it was good to have that experience of making it. So that was from Chessie and me. And then the following morning, our paperwork that we had gotten, and so there was no Facebook group. They're really not the woman who runs the store doesn't have a huge online presence. I mean, there's a website for her store, but there's not a lot of, you can't just, you can't place an order online. It's not that kind of store. You would have to call and see what she has. And about the retreat, it was the same way. So the paperwork we had said its session would start at 9. So I rolled in 5 to 9. And Kathy Barrick had already finished her presentation because apparently the store owner had announced the day before that it would start at 8:30, and there were quite a few of us who did not hear that. So a lot of us missed Kathy Barrick's presentation. I will say, I don't think I missed much because the project that she wanted you to do in class was all about like cutting paper. And so this is the cross-stitch piece that we got. So this lovely hand, and she had both the models there and passed them around, and they were really lovely. But the project had like cutting hands, like paper hands out and then putting in paper and whatever. I'm not a huge, I love stitching. And there's a part of me that wants to learn to do other needle arts. I can do needlepoint. I have done that trick in the past, but other needle arts. And I'm always impressed when I see people who do like paper cutting with cards and things like that, scrapbooking. But it's not something I'm really interested in doing myself. So I was kind of like, whatever, I missed her presentation. But anyhow, so that's what we got from Kathy Barrick. And then Liz Matthews went in the afternoon, and she, that was the other thing. Kathy Barrick did not provide any linen, which upset a number of people as well. I get it. It's hard because everyone has a different count of fabric that they like to work on. And for 150 people, you can't say, well, do you want 18 count Aida? Do you want 36 count? Do you want 32? Do you want 40? Do you want 56? Like, I get it. You can't make kits like that. But nonetheless, like, even people who will use whatever, they couldn't start that project based on what they got from her. And then from Liz Matthews. So she basically gave us, so this is the sampler. So it's, this is a reproduction sampler. This is the original. And she calls it a vanity sampler because as you can see here, the woman who, or the person who stitched this, we assume it's a woman, at some point actually cut out her information about, so her name, either when she stitched it or how old, or when she was born, like all that is gone. So we have no idea information about who stitched this sampler. And it was interesting because Liz Matthews said when she purchased this online, and the way it was sort of displayed online, it was deliberately done so you couldn't see this big hole in it. And she said when she got it, she's like, that actually made it better for her. Not because you don't want to know who stitched it, but it sort of, you hear that quite a bit about people who either picked out stitches or did things, and it lends another layer to the sampler. So I'm going to put my glasses on to see if I can actually read what this says. It's kind of morbid. Youth and vigor soon will flee, blooming beauty lose its charm. All that's mortal soon will be enclosed in death's cold arms. So I stitched this. I'm not sure that will be that will be the verse I keep on there. But nonetheless, interesting sampler. And then what she did, she took motifs from that sampler. So this looks the same, but she took motifs and she did individual pillows. And what we got as our kit for this was basically, and there was linen that came with this. But basically, my linen things got separated while I was moving things around. But basically what this is, so Liz, this is the pillow. And she sewed the pillow all four sides. And then she gives instructions. She's like, okay, now you have this. She's like, her version, you put the cut here, you turn it inside out. And then you put this, you cut this down to size, but you put this other gingham fabric on here. So you can see what she's done. So you've got this big pillow here, and then she gave you the linen, which again got separated, to do these individual, you choose the motif that you wanted to do. And then you stitch it, and then you hand sew that onto the gingham that you've cut down to size, and then hand sew the gingham onto the pillow, and then you stuff the pillow. So I thought that was an interesting idea, and she actually gave us the fiber fill as well. So I didn't start it while I was there, but I thought it was a really interesting idea. And I honestly, the motifs, there was a bird that I really liked, but there's also a crown, and given the passing of Queen Elizabeth. So my condolences to all of those, either people who are British or members of the Commonwealth. But I thought, because she passed away on the first day of the retreat, I thought that might be a good way to commemorate sort of what was going on during the retreat. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. And then we had a surprise designer. We had a surprise guest show up, and it was Lois from Lady Creates. And so she gave us a project as well. So she calls it a pumpkin. So this is a black pumpkin. And basically she gave us everything to make the pumpkin. So this is the sort of velveteen. She put the interfacing on, but you do have to cut around and gave very good instructions on how to make it. So I'm not someone who sews very much, but she makes it seem so easy that I think I can do it. So I probably will try it at some point. I mean, the worst thing that happens is it looks horrible. But it's not like I will have it's not something that takes, it's not like stitching where you can spend, hours and hours and hours on it. And then you go to make something and it gets messed up and you've cut and you can't redo it. And her point was, okay, this is just a black velveteen pumpkin. But once you get the hang of doing it, you can then take other things and make pumpkins out of them. And she was talking about an example where she was helping someone clean out a closet, and she found this sort of very 70s looking canvas needlepoint that this woman's mother had done. And the woman was like, my mother did it. I don't want to throw it away, but it's not really something I want to display. And Lois said, give it to me. And she made one of these pumpkins out of it. And it was a really nice way to save the stitches and do it in such a way that you commemorate the work while at the same time making something new and making something, in that case, it happened to be orange. So it worked out really well for a pumpkin. The following day, we started off with Alma from Blackbird's Designs. So she did give us, this is an old pattern. This is from Loose Feathers 2 with side needle. So that's an old one that she gave us. Apparently, I think this is out of print. I'm not 100% sure. But that was just given to us. And then the class project, which my things have gotten separated, but this is the pattern that we got, Moments of Glad Grace. And then we got all of the floss and linen if we wanted to do it. So cute little pattern. And then Teresa Kogut was the last presenter. She gave us, look at this lovely box that she gave us. It's like a little sampler box. And she called it Paniche Manor, and Paniche is a bird. Oops, I'm sorry about the noises. I really want to preserve the box. And so Paniche is a bird. And so here is the pattern. So and I think of all the presentations, I liked Teresa Kogut's the best because she, as you know, she's an artist and she really went through the elements of the design and why she did what she did. So she, and so she talked about I don't know if you can really see it, but there are actually curtains in the windows in the house. And she said because she wanted this to be a warm house that is inviting, and by putting curtains in the windows, that helped. And then this little guy here is a goat, and she was talking about her house. They are starting that there's poison ivy, and that apparently goats eat poison ivy. So the previous owner of the house had a goat, which when he sold the house, left with him or went somewhere else. And she said, but now we're getting a lot of poison ivy, and they've lived in this house, she said, for 20 years. So they're thinking about getting a goat to help with the poison ivy. So anyhow, just again, a really lovely pattern. And we got all the floss and the linen. Another little business card. Things like that. So my overall thought on the retreat, I'm glad I went. I'm always happy to meet stitchers. Got a lot of great projects. I'd never been to a retreat where we had like a class, and I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't, the retreat was a lot larger than I thought. It was 150 people, and I really wasn't expecting it to be that large, first of all. But then secondly, so you're sitting in a room, and like during their sessions, the various designers would go around. Well, some of them would go around and talk with you. I think some of them were up front, and everyone wanted to get pattern signed so that like they couldn't go around because they were doing that. But Teresa Kogan actually was up there signing everything, but she had gone around a few days, or the first day, and it was like a wedding. She was going to talk to every table. It was really lovely. But I think some of the projects, like one of them was like, and I think this was Blackbird Design, and apparently a lot of retreats used to make people paint things, and this one, she didn't do that. But basically we got a cardboard box, and for me, I'm like, I love looking at people who take wood items and put stitching on top or inside. I really love looking at that, but I'm like, it's a cardboard box. There's nothing special about this box. It's not very durable. It's not gonna, last probably more than 10 years. So it's not something I'd want to mount stitching on. And it was that, so some of the stuff I was like, I was a little bit disappointed. I love what Liz Matthews did with the pillow. I mean, she put a lot of time into creating those kits. And she had a vision, and she was talking about how it was really hard, like the blue and white check gingham or cream check gingham. She said she had a vision for it and had a really hard time finding the fabric that met her vision, but she did find it, I think she said, at a flea market or something. So it is vintage fabric. But then it wasn't just that she did that, but that she took the time then to, sew 150 pillows and put them into the kits. I mean, that's a lot of work. So I really did appreciate that. But I'm not sure. I mean, I love the designers. Not sure I'm going to stitch all the kits that I got because of the type of stitching I do. Doing a lot of samplers isn't normally what I do. Doesn't mean I won't do them, but they're not high on my priority right now. And the retreat was quite expensive. And again, I knew what the price was going in. Not sure I would pay that amount for a retreat again. And again, that was the class. I had to pay for my own airfare and, the hotel. I use hotel points. But, you had to pay for everything else on top of that as well. That was just for the actual retreat. And it did include lunch, but it did not include breakfast or dinner. So it was quite expensive. So, I appreciate all the hard work that went into it. Love the people I was talking with and around me. But again, not sure it's something that I would do again like that. I like retreats where maybe it's one designer, or you're just really going and hanging out, sitting with stitching buddies, and there's a vendor there. I really just enjoy meeting other stitchers and seeing what they're working on. And I learn as much from them as I did from the people who were leading these classes. That's what I think. And again, I don't mean to denigrate any of the designs or the organizers or anything else. But sometimes you sort of sometimes feel a little bit disappointed for what you paid for what you got. So anyhow, that is all I have to help talk about this week. I hope to be back in a couple of weeks to show you what I've been working on. Until then, happy stitching.